Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Safeguarding Matters Live. My name is Liz Dunn. I'm work in the training sort of arm of the Safeguarding Children's Partnerships across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, but this event is across the adults and children's partnerships across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, so it's a joint event.
Thank you. So just to say, my name's Amanda Boodoo and I am the independent scrutineer for the Children's Partnership across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, and really pleased to join you here today. So I'm going to be leading the first presentation, which is working with transient families, and that's really about strengthening the safeguarding practice. So although this has emerged from the children's partnership, actually what we know from local and national reviews that it is very relevant across children's and adults. So in terms of the presentation, we're going to, it offers the opportunity to explore safeguarding risks specific to transient families, including themes that have been identified in reviews, and that's both local and national reviews. It's an opportunity to identify areas of strength in current practice across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. An opportunity to identify what is working well, but I think importantly to really understand what are some of the barriers to, where it is not working as well as it could. So that's really just a very quick overview, but really important is the input that will support the local safeguarding children's partnerships, and that's hearing the voice of yourself. So as Liz has said, that we will be using Menti to try and get your input. So there will be 3 questions that are posed and then your opportunity to input into that. And then the responses that you get will be used by the partnership to really influence future development. So really, really important. So thank you. The next one. So thinking about, when we talk about transient families, what is it that we're meaning when we talk about them? So it really refers to children who experience frequent changes of address and or are placed in temporary accommodation. And again, although we refer to children, it's that think family approach. Children are part of families. So where there are implications for children, there are often the implications for the adults within the family, and we will come back to that in a moment. And what that means is, by being transient, they may lose contact with previous support networks, they may become disengaged from services, or they may actually be in a position where they're no longer known by services within that new area. When families move frequently, it's really difficult for agencies to build a picture of the risks that there are in relation to the welfare of those children and to successfully and adequately monitor those risks. Again, we have to think about the reasons that families may live a transient lifestyle, and there are a number of reasons for that, some of which are beyond the control of those family members. But again, thinking about working as professionals, professionals must consider the possibility that there are occasions that transient lifestyle is used as a way of preventing professionals from really identifying abuse within the family. And again, we've seen nationally within the media, not so long ago, a couple where that was used, that the baby was found dead and obviously resulted then in criminal proceedings. But as I say, in that case, there was that absolute purposeful attempts to avoid professional oversight. So whatever the reason, those frequent moves, may have a detrimental effect on children and young people, and particularly in relation to the, feelings of social isolation, but also the lack of educational consistency that we see time and time again. So thinking about the children and families that frequently, do sort of move between, um, you know, they may be families that are experiencing problems with housing and homeless families. So we often see where there are issues around housing, that there are those moves between different areas. They may be as a result of them being asylum seeking families and refugees. It may be a lifestyle that occurs as a result of them being families that have that travelling lifestyle. They may be looked after children, and we know children that are looked after, very often it is difficult to find the appropriate placements within the local area, and that results in them having to move area. Again, our children that are in the criminal justice system. And again, we see it commonly in families that are experiencing domestic abuse, and those moves outside of area may be done in an attempt to actually be a protective family, but obviously some of that can then have some negative consequences. Um, Families that move to the coastal area for the summer, so again, that may be a natural choice that is made. Families that are in the private rented sector, and families that are military families. So again, that whole raft of reasons that may result in families, and particularly where there are children in those families, being transient. Again, very important to note, as has said previously, that some families move deliberately in order to avoid professionals. So that really having that sort of positive, inquiring approach is really, really important. And again, it's vital that services working with children maintain that awareness of how easily information in networks can be lost in moves. And again, coming on to some of the learning that we have both in local reviews and national reviews, that is a feature. And, we see time and time again those processes for information sharing, that sometimes there are structural barriers as well as issues around the challenges within individual practice. So really emphasises the importance of that multi-agency planning and robust action to ensure that information and systems are in place, to ensure that highly mobile, vulnerable children and unborn babies are identified. Again, thinking about the duties that are placed on all agencies. So they have a specific duty to cooperate to ensure better outcomes and to improve the well-being of our children. And that includes the children that move frequently. So thinking about the identification of children at risk, when families move frequently, it is more difficult for agencies to identify risks and monitor the child's welfare. So it's really important that professionals in all agencies should be alert to the possibility that a child or family that has moved may not be in receipt of universal services. So again, that duty that's placed on all professionals, to really have that upon their radar. So again, in terms of thinking about any professional who comes into contact with the family, there's that need to be really proactive in engaging with the family in order to link them into those universal services. So that includes the seeking of information about the child, the family, really thinking about, getting the full names, dates of birth, details around where their previous address or addresses, GP's names, and if they have been attending school, details around the school. providing information about relevant services that the family can access, and again, that real active encouragement to get families to access those services. Ensuring that the family has made contact and registered with a local GP, and again, acknowledging that that is a choice that families have, but again, that real encouragement to do that, because from a health point of view, that is that one overarching record of health, so really important. Really encouraging the families to make contact and engage with schools and any other relevant service that the family and the children are entitled to, and to comply appropriately, obviously, with the local safeguarding policies and procedures, which is obviously really key. So child safeguarding practice reviews from around the county and around the country have identified that children missing from universal services are at risk in terms of being harmed, and we have seen that in a number of reviews, as I say, both locally across sort of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, but also in national reviews, in rapid reviews, local child safeguarding practice reviews, and reviews that have been done by partnerships outside of those remits. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, thinking about why it is important, as I say, there is that clear evidence base from those reviews that children who are part of transient families, so those that frequently move between areas, services or housing, face heightened risks of being missed by the systems that are there to support them, to protect them and to promote their well-being. That when children and adults are not visible to services, the vulnerabilities that there may be may go unnoticed, and those vulnerabilities may be at the level of the children or they may be at the level of the adults. So hence that real importance of that think family approach. And there is a need for a professionally curious and respectfully uncertain approach when working with these families to ensure that any safeguarding risks are identified early and responded to. And again, that critical thinking and authoritative inquiry is a key component of that really good multi-agency working when working with families under these circumstances. So just now moving on to look some of the themes that we've seen, and these are themes that have come out both locally and nationally from rapid reviews, but as I say, particularly across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, what we've seen that adults and children being able to access long-term specialist medication when moving areas, that there's an impact upon that. We've seen the impact around Marrock, where the transfers have not always worked well, where there are a history or where there is a history of domestic abuse. Again, thinking about the history of domestic abuse, what we've seen from reviews that very often there is that assumption made that moving away equates to the family being safe, and we know that that is not the case, so those risks are still there, so hence the need for those families to be very much involved in the services that are there to protect them. That timely information sharing doesn't always work well, and particularly the sharing of case records, etc. Again, we've seen from reviews the issues around Clare's law and Sarah's laws, that it's not clear how well they're being used, what the awareness is of those, and if there isn't that awareness or use, what the reasons are behind that. And we'll come back when we come to the last slide. There is links to Clare's law and Sarah's law within the slide pack. So again, for people to refresh how that can support them. And then the other thing that we have seen from local reviews, but again in national reviews, is the issue of hidden men in transient families. So again, going back to that, all professionals getting those details of the family members, who they are, their details, dates of birth, previous addresses. That's happened less well, we've seen, in terms of men, and those men become hidden, although we know from some reviews that actually they are there, they're having that contact, but there isn't that background information being sought about them to really make sense of risks or potential risks. Okay, so as we've said previously, we are going to use Menti, and that is a real opportunity, and would really urge people to really engage, because this isn't just the final slide, is going back to looking at reminding people, and I'm sure everybody is aware of what is available through the partnership and beyond, but some of the tools and guidance to support practice. So again, just reminding people about Sarah's law, reminding people about Claire's law, the professional curiosity resource, and the invisible, hidden and unseen men engaging fathers and male carers in effective practice sort of documents. So there's some of the ones, and again would really urge you to really look at those, remind those within your teams, etc., that these resources are available. So that is the end of my session today. So thank you very much for your participation, and just to say that your input will really support the partnerships in taking their work forward. So I think I'm now going to hand over for you to hear the presentation, the CAMS presentation.
Morning, thank you. Hi everybody. So as Liz has said, I'm Vicky Elliott. I'm matron for CAMS Community, and please excuse me, I'm actually in a shared room because our VPN has gone down this morning, so I've had to come into base. So yeah, today is an opportunity really for me to talk through CAMS, who we are and what we do. This is a bit of a whistle-stop tour of our service. I guess just the services in the context as well of the whole Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland emotional mental health offer. Obviously, if more information is needed on this after today, then please do let me know. I'm very happy to think about how we can support further conversations. So thank you for moving on to the next slide. So yeah, just in terms of why we need CAMS and why do we need mental health services for young people, what we do know is across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, and actually nationally, referrals to child and adolescent mental health services have risen dramatically since the pandemic and continue to rise. We know that approximately 1 in every 5 children, young people aged 8 to 25 in England has a probable mental disorder, and this prevalence has been rising. And therefore the demand for services continues to increase. But CAMS is absolutely just the tip of the iceberg. There is a much wider offer of emotional mental health support for young people that don't necessarily require a CAMS referral. And I guess just moving on to this slide, thinking about this narrative and what can often be portrayed, certainly across the media, this can become really dominant when we talk about mental health, alongside which there's an assumption that the only service supporting children and young people's mental health is CAMS. The next comment we usually hear is about wait times, which can then lead to families being put off from accessing support or accessing services that might not necessarily be required because they don't know what's out there, they don't understand the difference in services, etc. This narrative is quite simplistic, but also can be quite reductionist and misleading, and it doesn't help constructive and helpful conversations about demand and capacity issues in CAMS, and then what the solutions may be to access mental health services. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I guess we all appreciate the significant importance of partnership working. CAMS absolutely works collaboratively with children, young people, their parents, carers and other partner agencies. And this is really fundamental in order to improve effectiveness of interventions and outcomes. We all have a part in promoting mental health and resilience and understanding what's required for this to be maintained. Certainly from recent audits and inspections, there's been really positive feedback about interagency discussions, information sharing, attending multi-agency meetings, voice of children, young people and families being evident throughout, as well as collaboration with other agencies. Clinicians talking to young people about their experiences of abuse, neglect and trauma and taking appropriate steps to action these. There is, of course, learning and areas for development, and many of you will be connected with the work in place for this, and I'm sure we'll pick up on that at other times too. Next slide, please. So this really helps to set CAMHS in the context of the offer across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. So these are the ICB, so the Integrated Care Board, commissioned services for children, young people's mental health services. And what you can see is there's a whole range of services providing emotional mental health support to children, young people, some of which are more of a virtual offer and some are direct care, and they go through from Tell Me right through to our crisis support that's available. Next slide, please. The Children, Young People Mental Health Directory provides a whole range of information about co-produced and co-designed it's a co-produced and co-designed directory that has local and national services. Alongside that, this slide contains details of the at-a-glance summary of all the NHS commissioned and mental health services for children and adults across Leicestershire and Rutland. I guess we really would always direct people to those credible sites in order for them to be accessing resources that we know have got good governance with them. Likewise, sites like our Health for Teens, Health for Kids, Chat Health are really helpful places to go. Next slide, please. So when does CAMHS get involved? The Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service provides specialist mental health services for children and people experiencing moderate to severe mental health problems and disorders up to the age of 18 years. One of our team's paediatric psychology does see children and people up to the age of 19. Young people need to be residing in and registered with a GP in Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. As a multidisciplinary service, Specialist CAMHS is best placed to see those children and young people with presentations described in the acceptance criteria. So under that referral criteria, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, etc. What we don't see are children and young people where there's difficulties associated with what we would be an expected reaction to life events. Unless that then tips into having a significant impact on their functioning. And there are a range of other things that perhaps wouldn't meet the CAMHS criteria, but fundamentally we're looking at children and people that are presenting with moderate to severe mental health needs that are having a significant impact across all areas of their life. I guess what we have absolutely seen recently, I'm sure it won't have escaped any of you, is that concern around perhaps overdiagnosis or over-identifying mental health issues to things that may be a reaction to day-to-day life. Referral into CAMHS services via the triage and navigation service provided by DHU Health, and that's a single point of access for all ICB commissioned behavioural mental health and emotional wellbeing services. And that single point of access aims to ensure that children and people who need services receive the appropriate support that meets their needs, and that includes an assessment for autism or ADHD. There are specialist services within CAMHS that have their own referral routes. That's our learning disability team, eating disorder team, young people's team and paediatric psychology team. And all this information can be found on our website. So the LPT website contains all this information. There is also an option for families to self-refer back via the My Self-Referral portal. Next slide, please. So in terms of neurodevelopmental assessment and diagnosis, again, I don't think any of you will be surprised to hear that we've seen a significant increase in referrals for ND assessments, and the referral rates for ND conditions generally increased by about 89% since 2020. So for CAMHS, they now represent around 50% of all referrals into our service. For community paediatricians, they represent around I can't read my own slide, sorry. They represent around 90% of their referrals. What the current pathway is for children and young people is for children under 11 are seen by community peds, and for 11 plus that would fall into specialist CAMHS. There is work underway to have a ND pathway that is facilitated by CAMS and community paediatricians, and that is work in progress for those young people to be housed under that unit. We know that neurodevelopmental conditions are not mental health conditions in and of themselves, although many children and young people have both mental health concerns and ND concerns. And we see that there's been an increase in the ask for these. I guess what we also really encourage people is, whilst we understand and appreciate the importance of a robust assessment for children and people, it's also really important to understand this in the context of their individual needs. So what is the need of that young person at any one particular time? And are there things that we can put in place whilst we're waiting for an assessment, if that's needed, to support that child and young person across the whole range of their life, and their parents and carers as well. Next slide, please. So this is us as CAMS. We've designed the service and allocated resource in line with clinical need and presenting issues. So under the umbrella of the outpatient team, there are various pathways, one of which is access, which is an assessment pathway, duty, which is our managed waiting list system, neurodevelopmental pathway, acute pathway, a treatment and intervention pathway, and a transitions pathway. The specialist teams have been established to provide a service to those identified at being higher risk in terms of their mental health and who are more vulnerable or less likely to engage in services, or for whom family stress or burnout is more likely to be a factor, and therefore they're proportionately better resourced, which improves access and provides more targeted support. Resources directed in a way to safeguard children and young people are at greater risk. We then have our risk pathway, and we've seen a real positive impact, benefit and feedback regarding this. What we've seen is this has resulted in less children and people requiring admission to inpatient care, and when they are admitted to inpatient care, that their stay is shorter there, which is really positive, because we want to support young people in the community as much as is possible. And Beacon is our inpatient unit, which is part of Leicestershire Partnership Trust CAMS, but it's also important to remember that this is part of a regional bed stock, which includes general adolescent unit, psychiatric intensive care unit, specialist eating disorder unit, and low secure unit. And there is a centralised admission process for this. Next slide, please. This provides a bit more information about the specialist teams. It's for you. I wasn't going to go through all of this, but obviously if more information is required after this, then please do let me know. Next slide, please. So we've aligned our service to a transdiagnostic for treatment pathway. What this ensures is that a young person's journey is bespoke and meets their mental health needs in a collaborative way. Progress is reviewed with children and people at regular intervals, and outcome measures are used to inform individual progress. This shows that for some young people that they won't necessarily need all of these intervention phases. So for some young people, they may need phase one, so safety and stabilisation, and that might be in and of itself enough for them to then move out of the service and perhaps access resource in other areas, or that they are that is sufficient to them at this current time. So then we can look at what they need to maintain that, and what helps them to recognise things like early warning signs or anything that indicates that they might need additional support. So they may then move just to phase 3. There will be a cohort of children, young people that need phase 2, which is a more targeted intervention of nice evidence-based interventions. Next slide, please. Just to give them a very quick overview of trauma-informed care. This is not a set of practices or strategies, but it absolutely represents an overarching ethos and culture that encompasses 6 principles. That's safety, choice, empowerment, trustworthiness, collaboration, cultural consideration. And this is really the ethos and values that underpin the delivery of the service. So alongside our transdiagnostic care pathway, we also have some more specific care pathways targeted at specific interventions such as neurodiversity. But fundamentally, this is the philosophy into which the care in CAMS is delivered. Next slide, please. So the support that's offered for children and people who are waiting, because as we know, there is waiting lists for CAMS intervention. There's less in terms of access to an initial assessment, but more once children and people have been assessed, if they need further more intensive assessment or intervention, then we have established various resources and offers to support young people and their parents and carers whilst waiting. The aim of this is to empower them and to encourage them to take a proactive approach to making use of these resources. And we do review these in contacts that we have with children and people whilst they're waiting. And we really see the benefits of that blended approach. All cases are prioritised based on clinical need. And so if there's presenting like increased risk or acute mental health needs, then we will look at prioritising those young people. We have a well-developed digital offer, and there's been a significant investment in this, and we've had really positive feedback about the benefits of that. We do recognise barriers to access, such as digital poverty, and this is certainly part of the work of our health equity work streams, and we have various people leading different pieces of work around this. We also have a well-established waiting list management system, which is managed by the duty team, with regular reviews of mental health risk taking place at that time. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges, I guess, as we've discussed previously, there has been a significant increase in referrals. What we've also seen is an increase in acuity and complexity of children and people we're working with, both in terms of their needs and that of their parents and carers, along with increased demand on services across the system. As would be expected, given the investment in early intervention services, children and people presenting with mental health needs are at the acute end of that continuum, and there's a high need for demand. So as the other early intervention services have grown, that's pushed up the sort of rates of the intensity, severity, and complexity of the mental health needs that we're seeing in CAMHS. I guess what we're doing then, there's been continued rollout of the mental health support teams in school, and there's commitment for this to be in all schools across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland by 2030. Currently, we've got this established in 49% of educational settings, and they're currently targeted at areas of need. We are also working closely with communities, and CAMHS has appointed a community participation lead who's working to understand barriers to accessing services and improving access from communities who don't typically access our services, as well as engaging with faith leaders and community groups. We're working with all system partners for the Transformation for Change project in response to growing neurodiversity and recognition and need, such as PINS, which is the Partnership for Inclusion of ND in Schools, and the Change programme. And we also have the enhanced crisis pathways, which we talked about earlier, which includes, we've got a Crisis Plus team who are based at the emergency department at Leicester Royal Infirmary, and they will see children and young people who present there for mental health assessment. If appropriate, there might be some young people that are diverted from there so that they can be seen in more appropriate locations, so different hubs or their own home. Next slide, please. So I guess just to capture some of our success stories, we do have a social media account which is aimed at teenagers, and also within the website, on the Health for Teens website, is a dedicated section called Our Voice, and that hosts content created by young people for young people. And this is a really empowering place for young people to share their thoughts and experiences. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. My name's Chloe Bird. I'm a practice consultant at Safe Lives, and I'm here on behalf of the ECHO project, which we are working on in conjunction with LWA. For those that may have attended the LWA conference on Monday, you might have heard about the ECHO project, or you may have seen it in other areas. We've kind of been connecting with a lot of people across LLR to talk about the project and to really make us well known in the area. So today I'm just going to go through and talk about a little bit about the impacts that we've made, and then hopefully put it over to you. Just based off the conversations that we've had this morning, it's really interesting to hear some of the barriers that professionals have recognised in kind of working across multi-agencies. And I think it's really important that we recognise that and how we can overcome that. So just a bit of a background for those that haven't heard about ECHO, or haven't heard about Safe Lives. Safe Lives is a national charity. We work with professionals and local authorities to look at kind of embedding best practice. So we don't only focus on the whole person, we focus on the family, the whole community, and kind of create that whole picture around domestic abuse. And then as part of that, we have been funded by the National Lottery to carry out the Project Echo. So we're working across 3 local areas. So we're working across Leicestershire County Council, unfortunately not in the city or in Rutland, but we are working across the County Council, and then we're also working in Sheffield and Bolton as well. So each area has a practice consultant and they have agencies that we're working with. So for Leicestershire County, we're working with LWA, and they host 2 authentic voice coordinators. So one for adults and one for young people. And their contact details will be at the end if you do want to get in touch with them. But essentially, we're looking to embed authentic voice, so lived experience, survivor voice, whatever you want to call it, into policies and practices across LLR, essentially across the county, by listening to survivors, because they are the experts. They know what works, they know what doesn't work, they know what they've been through, and they know what needs to be put in place. So at the moment, we have a whole range of survivors that we're speaking to, and I'll come on to that in just a little bit. But they've given us so much valuable information already. And I think it's really important that we kind of take that a bit further as well. So also as part of the project, we've been delivering lunch and learns across the year. So this project goes on till December 2026. So we're coming into our last year of the project. It is a pilot project to see kind of what works in terms of embedding that authentic voice. And we've got lots of learning from it so far. But as part of that, we've delivered a lot of lunch and learn. So these are a few that we've delivered this year. As you can see, we've had quite a fair few uptake for some of the topics, and we've had quite a few attendees from Leicestershire as well. So a big thank you to anybody in the room who has attended any of those. They are all available on our website should you want to watch them, and they all include survivor voice. So they all have pioneers or lived experience embedded within them, and they really bring that kind of value to the training sessions that sometimes professionals without a lived experience won't be able to bring. But working alongside to kind of bridge the gap between that professional knowledge and that lived experience knowledge. So I can share the link at the end. But just a big thank you for Leicestershire for being so involved in all of those lunch and learns. We will be carrying them on into next year as well. So our first one next year is looking at kind of trauma-informed practice again, working with young people. And we do have a bunch of young people survivors who are willing to get involved in that and who really want to be a part of that and talk about trauma-informed practice and the principles whilst working with young people and how they may differ to working with adults as well. So please keep your eyes peeled for that. It will be up on Eventbrite as soon as we are ready to announce it in the new year. And I can also share that link as well. So like I said, we are working across the county and we have had a whole bunch of survivors come forward and really want to be part of the project. So in total, we have about 28 survivors. As of Monday, we've actually had about 8 more come forward from one of the programmes that's run in Hinckley and Bosworth. But survivors are really keen to share their stories and to share their experience. But even if they don't feel they want to talk about their experience, they're really keen to be a part of policies and service delivery and really making sure that agencies are fit for the purpose of working with victims and survivors of domestic abuse. And they have lots of thoughts already. So as you can see, we have survivors from all across the county. And I believe we've covered every single district so far. We're really making sure that we're kind of looking at those intersectional needs as well. So we have survivors from all different types of backgrounds and cultures. However, we do want to kind of push that further. So if there is anybody here who works with kind of any of the travelling community or any other backgrounds, please do get in touch because we would love to hear from you, and we really want to have that rounded view from survivors and what that looks like and what we can do to support them further. So kind of those seldom heard, you know, are we making our services accessible to those from different cultures and backgrounds, and what does that look like? What do they need? And we really want to hear from them as well. And for anybody who hasn't necessarily accessed mainstream services, we would love to know the barriers for that as well. So this, I think, is a really interesting slide because we pulled this together at the very start of the project when we only had about 6 survivors involved And as you can see, we've got about 28 adults, and then we also have about 8 young people involved in the service as well. But from the very start of the project, out of the 6 that we first initially spoke to, this was all of the services that they had accessed. So on the left is a list of the kind of services that any victim or survivor can access, and then you've got some of the programs that LWA put on as well. And that's quite a large list for 6 survivors. You can see there's a whole range of services in there, from mental health, from domestic abuse services, from children's services, children's mental health is in there as well. And we have survivors who have accessed all of those. So throughout today, I think I really wanted to put it over to those in the room and just start to have a think about, do you have anything where survivor voice is embedded? And I'm not just talking about feedback forms where you kind of do that once a case is closed. I'm talking about true, authentic voice. Do you have that embedded? You know, if you're looking to do projects, if you're looking to carry out projects, have you thought about getting survivor voice in there? Have you co-produced any policies with survivor voice? And what does that look like? Are you paying them for their time? Are you remunerating them for their time in giving their expertise and having them involved in that? And I know we're in you know, all charities and services are kind of pushed for funding, and there currently is no funding. But as part of Project Echo, we do remunerate all of our survivors. So every time we meet them and talk about a specific topic, every time they do a conference. So for example, we had an adult and 2 young survivors attend the LWA conference on Monday. They spoke about their story and they spoke about the kind of gaps in service, and they were remunerated for their time. But we co-produced all the slides with them. And they were fully involved from the very beginning. So I just want to put it over to you and start to have a think within your specific agency or wherever you've come from today. What do you have locally within your service? What do you have that really lets survivors be at the heart of that? Do you speak to them about actually what do they want from this service? Is there any barriers that we haven't necessarily recognised, and what does that look like? And what can we do to kind of overcome those? And bring them in at the very start. I think survivors are very savvy these days, and they know when they're just being asked for their input as kind of a tick box exercise. And they know when they're just being used, and we don't want to create that environment. We really want them to work alongside them and to really have their expertise. So just a thought for you to ponder on throughout the rest of the day. Like I said, if there are any kind of opportunities where you do want survivor voice embedded, please do reach out to us because they are ready to talk, they are ready to be involved, and they're a really good bunch of survivors, and they've got so much experience. So these are some of the themes that we've kind of emerged from some of our conversations already. One of them is around kind of CAFCAS and family courts. We know that this is a massive struggle nationally. This isn't just local to Leicestershire, but we have a seconded domestic abuse practice development manager at CAFCAS who's really working with CAFCAS to look at their domestic abuse pathways and their best practice. And we're working alongside her to really take back that feedback and to look at what can be done, not only locally, but nationally as well for CAFCAS and for family courts, and whether there is anything that needs to be changed. We're in the very early stages of that. However, that conversation is ongoing, and survivors have been really, really key in being part of that conversation. I'm sure you're not surprised, but we've heard a lot about the police. We've had some really good experiences of the police, and we've had some slightly negative experiences of the police, but actually if you attended the conference on Monday, you would have seen that we had a speaker from the police come to talk about Project 360. We're also engaging with some local police officers to really talk about how do they embed the survivor voice, and what more could they be doing to make survivors feel safe when they're going to call outs. And one of our pioneers who works locally is a police officer herself, and has been working alongside us on this project to really make sure that the police are doing everything they can to kind of listen to survivors. And we're talking not only just from call outs, but we're looking at some of the training that they deliver to see whether survivor voice is embedded in that. And if you have any training locally that kind of needs to be reviewed, or if there is no survivor voice embedded into that, we can certainly support with that as well. One of the other topics that we've seen from our young people that we're working with is around education in schools. And what that package looks like, and if the training or if any kind of education in schools around domestic abuse is actually landing where it needs to land, or if it's making sense, or if they're being provided in the right way. So one of the things that we've been hearing is that assemblies actually aren't one of the right places to have that conversation, because there is no follow-on after, and there's no kind of safe space for people to go to. And you don't know who's actually in the room. There could be perpetrators in the room within schools, and they're having the same conversations. So we're working with schools. We're attending the education subgroup in the new year to have a conversation around what education in schools looks like. One of our young people survivors has a really negative experience of kind of school support throughout her experience, and we're working with that school to look at how we can better their response when it comes to domestic abuse, and recognise it and providing that support in schools, but also sticking in line with, you know, consent and everything like that. And the other key thing, which I think we've heard all throughout the day, is that kind of information sharing between agencies. So we're working really closely with the local authority to look at this, not only between domestic abuse services, but between all those kind of statutory services as well, around how can we improve that information sharing. It can be really re-traumatizing for survivors to keep on retelling their story. And it needs to be done better in a more timely manner. So we're working with the local authority around that. And then on the screen, we have some of our other topics that we're going to be discussing. So things around access to refuge, more awareness on economic abuse, and we've currently linked in with surviving economic abuse as well, to kind of talk about what we can do better. So as part of the next steps for the project, this is where you come into it. For our adult survivors, we do coffee mornings where we speak about some of the topics and themes, and where we kind of present those opportunities too. So if you do have an opportunity, or if you do want survivors involved in anything within your service, the kind of referral pathways that you would contact one of our authentic voice coordinators, so whether that's adults or young people, or whether you need both. We will then present that opportunity to the survivors, and we'll kind of get an expression of interest from them. And if they want to be involved, they can, and that's where we can kind of follow on from that and kind of put that into place. But one of the big opportunities that we have is that as part of the LLR Domestic Abuse Partnership Board, we're having a subgroup of survivors. And that's both adults and young people who can feed into the partnership board, who can really bring those themes to life, who can really start to have those conversations and discussions with the right people in the room around how do we improve services, what do we need to be doing better locally, and what's working really well as well, and what can we carry on doing. And that will have an impact on funding, on potentially commissioning, and making sure that the service, well, the local area is really hitting the needs of the local survivors. So that's one of the kind of major opportunities that we've had. We've also had survivors have their input into the refresh of the domestic abuse strategy, domestic abuse reduction strategy. So that's currently in its final stages. And the lead for that has spoken to survivors, kind of gotten their input, and the young people. And we're just waiting for the draft for that to be circulated as well. But I guess I want to use this space to really put it on you. We have the survivors, we have the voices, they're really keen to share. What more can we do, and what more can we get involved in? So this is the contact details. So Claudia is our young person authentic voice coordinator. She's recently joined us and taken over from a previous one, but she's brilliant. She's also a young person IDVA, and she has lots of knowledge around working with young people. Tracy is our adult authentic voice coordinator and kind of manages all of the adult survivors. And then there's my contact details as well. But if you have any opportunities, please do reach out to Claudia and Tracy. They are the ones working and holding that space. And they'll be reviewing any opportunities that come forward. So please do have a think around whether there's anything that can be done locally, or even thinking about the culture around within your own service around, do you listen to survivors? Are they fully embedded? And what more can be done?
I was asking, were some survivors actually intentionally discouraged by police, or were survivors discouraged by being informed of the timescales, delays in getting CPS charging advice around survivors who, were discouraged by the police intentionally or not?
We've had a mix of experiences. We have had particularly some of our young people discouraged from going forward with kind of any prosecution due to the timescales. And I can, from a professional view, I can understand why from that police officer it was said. However, when we're talking about a survivor's life, we shouldn't really be kind of encouraging that. But then we've also had really positive experience of the police. So we can certainly talk further outside of this around how that was done, and if we want to kind of take that further. But we've had a mixture of both, really, in short form. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Right, hello everyone, I'm Sophie, I'm the Communications and Engagement Officer for the Violence Reduction Network, and along with my colleague Lisa, we oversee the Live Safe brand and website for the partnership. Yeah, so if you want to go on slide 2.
No, so next week there'll be the Exodus.
It's thingy one.
Lovely, and then if you just click through, then all of the bullet points should come up on the screen. Cool, thank you. The VRN partnership has made considerable progress in embedding behaviour change methodologies into campaigns. This includes a focus on, number one, providing information and signposting so that people can increase their awareness and understanding of different types of harm affecting children and young people, increasing their ability to stay safe and keep safe. And number two, promoting the social norms, which we want to see, for example, not a deficit-based approach. And number three, calls for action using evidence-based bystander methodology. Preventing violence requires everyone to play a role. The VRN partnership aims to equip everyone with the knowledge and tools to be able to play their part, and achieves this through its universal and targeted work. The Live Safe website is an example of universal provision, aimed at all young people, parents and carers, and professionals across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. It provides a central space for information, guidance, and useful resources on issues which affect young people's safety. Next slide, please. So, an overview on Live Safe. The VRN partnership aims to equip everyone with the knowledge and tools to be able to play their role. That's a really key line that we use for everything that we do with Live Safe, and I'll go into further detail later. Live Safe is an example of our universal offer, providing a 24/7 accessible virtual space which enables the VRN partnership to share information, guidance, signposting in relation to issues which can affect young people's safety and well-being. The overarching aim is to empower young people, parents and carers and professionals to play an active role in keeping children and young people safe. The target age for Live Safe website is 10 to 19-year-olds, but the information on the website can be relevant to young adults aged 18 to 25. Live Safe involves partnership participation. It involves partners throughout all development through our Live Safe development group meetings, which happen quarterly. We also take Live Safe to young people within schools and youth spaces, and all of our work is signposted and trialed out with them throughout everything we do. The topics on the website include knife crime, healthy relationships, substance use, staying safe online, and gangs and criminal exploitation. These topics were picked through data from this point of from the point of creating Live Safe, and also those meetings that we were having with the Live Safe development group and young people, asking them what they were worried about, what necessarily they needed more information on. These topics consistently are evolving. So before, we didn't have, when it first came about, we didn't have healthy relationships and substance use. We've since added those because they've been ones that have been brought to the partnership. So we're continually expanding the Live Safe brand. The next slide, please. So Live Safe has 3 sections, like I spoke about before. We have the young people section, parents and carers, and professionals. So young people's Live Safe pages are really what our main focus is on as we work with and for the young people. And as you can see there, it splits up into the different sections. So knife crime, criminal exploitation, all the other topics that I've just mentioned, and then a make a stand against violence, which you can see in the bottom right there. That is the active bystander training. So it teaches young people how to be an active bystander. And the words, the photos are not stock imagery. They are taken within Leicester through all of the pages in the Live Safe branding. With obviously full consent, and all of the wording has been through either ourselves, the partnership, or external design companies to have written the wording, and then as soon as that wording is written, it will go out to young people for them to check and for them to tell us if we're using the wrong language, if we're using outdated language, if they think it's just not relevant to them. We will change it. Absolutely, what they say goes, and we do adapt to fit their needs. As a juxtaposition, the parents and carers page is exactly the same layout as the young people's, but different wording. So the knife crime page on Live Safe, for example, can say knife crime is X, Y, and Z. This is why you shouldn't carry your knives. This is why you should prevent your mates from carrying knives. How do you combat that in your everyday life? Whereas parents and carers will say, this is what knife crime is. How do you talk to your young person? It's such an awkward conversation. How do you even start that? What can you do to approach them in a calm and relaxed manner that, you know, will get the message across? And it's more of that help. And each page has a specific, if you're in trouble and want to ask questions, they have the specific localized helplines that you can go to for more information and stuff like that. We also have a really cool thing that's on the website, which is a quick escape button. I'm sure quite a few people use that, but just to let you know, in the bottom right, there's a quick escape button, and if you click that, it scrubs it from your Google. So if you're, for example, a young person and you're in an unsafe place and you're looking at the criminal gangs and exploitation and you want to read about it, and someone storms into the room, if you click the quick escape, they'll not be able to see what you were looking at. A lot of places have that. It's just a really good tool. We've always had really positive feedback from young people about that quick escape button. So I just wanted to highlight that if anyone had any websites that they thought, oh gosh, that's quite relevant. It's just called the quick escape button, and if you talk to the people who have designed your page, it's our designers said that it was very easy to put on, but I can really get behind that, and I hope that's something that people do take away if they've not got that yet. And then going on to finally the professionals page. So this, I'll speak a little bit more about it later, but so we have the schools toolkits in there. We've got professionals toolkits in there. It doesn't have to be schools, but when I was at school, it was PSHE. It's now got another name. But any of those types of topics that are on Live Safe, if schools, for example, wanted a healthy relationships resource package. We have a package that we've made with young people that is about 4 lessons long, that one, and it has a parents and carers one sheet for you to be able to send to parents and carers and say, this is what we've been talking about in this lot of 4 lessons, for example, and it has exercises, worksheets in it, and it has whole lesson plans for teachers. It also has PolEd. If people have heard of PolEd, so Leicestershire Police have paid for the membership of Police Education, which is shortened to PolEd, which is access for schools, youth clubs, youth services, and they can sign up on the professionals page on LiveSafe for free, and they can get an access to a whole collection of ranges of resources for schools or youth spaces. And we also have our toolkits on there, which I'll go into more detail in the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our progress is, like I said, every quarter we have our LiveSafe development group meetings, which is made up of a lot of partners in our area. We have health there, we have police there, we have schools there, we have youth club services there, we have people all over who have a bit of a buy-in from LiveSafe. We currently have a large social media presence. We have partnered with a creative agency to lead on our social media plan, and they promote LiveSafe. They promote LiveSafe through Snapchat, and this year we've been promoting YouTube Shorts, because I'm sure people who work with young people will know that YouTube is getting more and more large as a platform, actually, where young people will just pop their headphones on and just consistently watch YouTube videos. So we're jumping into those ads that pop up on YouTube, as well as Snapchat in Leicestershire and Rutland. Our social media plan, of course, we want to aim our messages to young people, but we also need to focus on parents and carers, because there's such great information there for those too. So we also do Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, and we do targeted ads for the young for the parents and carers pages. We've also partnered with another creative agency for TikTok, so that's a brand in itself. So for the TikTok LiveSafe, we partnered with a creative agency who brought a lot of Leicester-based actors who are already on TikTok, so they've got like TikTok presence, and we interviewed them. We spoke about the LiveSafe brand with them, and we eventually picked some, and we've been writing scripts, we've been writing storyboards with them, and then we've been producing these videos, because TikTok is fully video based, with content around healthy relationships, red flags in relationships, green flags in relationships. We've even spoken about knife crime. We've spoken about do you know the signs of one of your mates having joined a gang or being involved with people who aren't good for them? And that's been a really fantastic process. That was a 3-month process, and it gained like 1.2 million engagements, which is fantastic in just 3 months. We had over 99% of people watching were from Leicestershire and Rutland, which was brilliant, and we've been awarded the funds to be able to do the TikTok 3-month program again at the start of January. So hopefully after Christmas we'll be starting again and having another 3 months of really great TikTok overview. We also have our workshops for parents and carers, which have been starting with knife crime. And they're promoted through our VRN ticket tailor, although yesterday we had our first face-to-face session that was purely promoted through posters in the area, and people didn't have to sign up for that, and we got a really great turnout. I believe we got almost 30 parents and carers to come to that. So we're very happy with that one. And oh no, my slides have gone off.
Yeah, could you reshare, please, Jo?
I'm just bringing all the bad luck with IT. I'm really sorry. And continuing with the professionals use, we also partnered with an agency to create resources for professionals to use with young people around healthy relationships. Why we focused on healthy relationships that time was a youth endowment fund found that 27% of teens have been in a relationship over the past year, and of those, 49% experience some form of violent or controlling behaviour. So that's basically half of them. So that was why our Live Safe Development Group really focused on that, wanting to be a key part of our focus this year, and we have now created that. We're now going on to look at online safety and online harm, so that will be our next quarter's focus. And again, we'll be creating resources for professionals to use on online harms. Our pages have also just been updated. They also went through a review with the young people's panel, and everything that they said that they wanted changing has been changed on the website, which is absolutely fantastic. The professional section of schools and colleges was co-designed with schools and colleges. We've partnered, yes, so the Live Safe TikTok was with partnership with Corp Comms as well. So we've been paying half and half with the police and the Violence Reduction Network. And training around Live Safe topics, for example, substance use, so it doesn't have to be parents and carers focused, it's professionals. That also, all of our training is provided on our VRN ticket tailor. And then finally, we've partnered with the NHS Partnership Trust, Leicestershire Police and Leicester City Council for new knife crime resources. That project involves capturing perspectives from a range of partners around knife crime and the ripple effect and solutions. So they should be coming live in January. Next slide, please. So campaign examples that we have on the Live Safe website is We Don't Carry. The VRN and Leicestershire Police developed a new approach and branding of the #Lives Not Knives campaign, which I'm sure you've heard of, following the emerging evidence that shock tactics have unintended impact of increasing fear, a known reason why some young people carry weapons. The new concept aims to be more authentic, avoid negative stereotypes, and instead convey more positive image and narrative, which focuses on the fact that most young people do not carry knives and have positive ambitions and goals. Make a stand against violence, I touched on this earlier, and the VRM partnered with a creative agency and co-designed this campaign with young people. The aim is to empower young people by giving them some simple tools to be an active bystander. It uses a positive narrative which focuses on the majority of young people who are against violence. Starting with ensuring the young person is safe themselves, the toolkit then gives 3 possible options: cool it down, be direct, and get help. And the final one, are you listening? The VRN partnered with Leicestershire Police and the multi-agency Child and Criminal Exploitation Hub to develop a campaign focused on child and criminal exploitation. Are You Listening is a short film which aims to raise awareness amongst trusted adults and highlight the importance of them taking action if they're concerned. The film focuses on typical types of criminality children do and have been drawn to within LLR. It highlights that whilst children may not tell an adult if they are in trouble, there are often some signs that indicate they might need help. Next slide, please. And then I briefly touched on it. I am almost finished. On the campaign toolkits, so we have our wider Live Safe toolkit, including ready-made social media posts and images to enable partners to promote and share Live Safe on their own websites and through their own networks. We're updating this toolkit consistently, and we are enabling partners to have access to flyers, business cards, banner work. In the meantime, if you do have any requests for resources, imagery, digital artwork, please drop me an email and I can get that sorted. For example, recently De Montfort University have just asked for some specific posters that show the knife crime work that's on Live Safe, for posters around there, and I was able to do that for them. So yeah, absolutely anything that you need, please let me know. We just want to continually push Live Safe out there to people who might need it. And then the We Don't Carry and Make a Stand Against Violence campaigns have toolkits that are available to download as well. The toolkits aim to support partners to publicise the campaign and or use it in your work with young people. Next slide. And then, yeah, thank you so much, everyone. My email address is on the screen, so if you have any questions or any requests, please feel free to email me and I will do my best to answer. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sophie. We do have a couple of questions. If you could be brief in answering them, if there is an answer, just because of the timing, not because we're not interested.
Yes,
but
yeah,
do you cover the risks of AI, such as character AI and grooming from AI chatbots?
So at the moment, our online harms don't cover AI. We are currently, so in the next quarter, we'll be doing our online harms foundation, we're calling it. So it's like the basis of online harms, but next year we already have a plan that we will be doing specified smaller, so that instead of them being 4 lessons, for example, there'll be 1 lesson per like, for example, deep fake will have one, AI chatbots will have one, etc. The thing that we were worried about is if we collated it all into one, a large thing, there's sometimes harm in showing young people what you can do, rather than taking that back. So this way we can show the foundation work that's already being started and should be out next quarter, and then from 2026 onwards we will be doing lessons that young teachers can add on top as and when they're needed.
Lovely, thank you, that's great.